Hello, hello. I've gotten myself all cozy for today's podcast and I even have some craft to do. Why is that relevant? Because hello, this is the Coffee and Craft podcast where I drink coffee, which I have, and I used to craft while I did the podcast, but I often forget the crafting and instead focus on keeping you company while you craft or work. Well, today I'm crafting along with you. Last week's video was a bit of an intense one, and I wanted to drop down a gear this week and do something a little bit calmer. I wanted to talk about perfection because I genuinely believe that it can hold us back and stop our businesses from growing. So I try to rock up occasionally and invite people to rethink perfection and reframe it as not something to aim towards for a number of reasons. And one of them is that you can't be great out of the gate. That wasn't supposed to rhyme. I am seeing this more and more, that when people are starting their business, they, instead of being on page 1, they want to be on page 101. And I said this a couple of videos back when I was talking about comparison and how we shouldn't compare our page whatever to someone else's page whatever. But I see it a lot with people who are just starting out in their business and they compare themselves to other people. I can understand why, because you want to see if you're doing everything right, but in the process you are looking at what they're achieving and you're thinking, I'm not achieving that. And if you're just starting out and you're looking at someone who's been in business for years, then you're not going to be like them, because you're not looking at their day one, their year one. You're looking at their day God knows what. And I think there's a lot of people who would like to skip that part, because I get it, it's uncomfortable, there's a huge learning curve involved, and you have this idea of how you want your work and your business to look, and it just doesn't, because it takes time to get there. You've got to get your reps in, and there's a lot of people who want to skip the reps. There's work to be done, my love, and you unfortunately you can't skip it. But there's also magic in the starting out. I look back at the days where I was first starting my business, and I can see the frustration that I felt too at the time, because I wanted to be better than I was and I wanted to reach my goals faster and all of the things. But there was definitely a magic to it that I kind of miss. You just can't get it when you're 5, 10, 15, 20 years in. You get a different kind of magic, but the magic of starting something, it's only in the starting. And while you can't skip it, you also can't get it back. It's just that magic and that feeling of anything is possible. And you really do need to allow yourself to suck at stuff. This is as true in making things as it is with your business. The only way you get good at something is by practicing and, as I say, putting the reps in. And at the beginning, you need to be prepared to not be very good at stuff. But that can actually be really, really good for your creativity. And I think we need to allow ourselves and make space for us to be bad at things. Case in point, crochet. Crochet is one of the things that I do just for me. I will never monetize it. It's a just for me hobby, along with knitting and gardening, and I muddle through for good reason. I need things in my life that I'm not good at, that I enjoy, that I can give myself permission and freedom to be beautifully and wonderfully terrible at. This blanket, if you're listening and you can't see, I have a crochet granny square blanket on my chair, and I have just recently fixed it because it was full of holes. Not the kind of little holes that's it's supposed to have. The big holes that came with making a bit of a scrappy blanket, I'll be honest. The fact that I've got something that's for me and only for me, and I allow myself to be bad at, means that I can show up in my business to the other extreme, because obviously the way I will make something for myself is very different to how I will make something for someone else. Like, I will stress over the silliest details when I'm making something for the shop, but when I'm making something for me, I'm wearing a crochet cowl because it's the middle of January and it is freezing, and look at all these ends that I have not woven in. They will not get woven in. They stay stuck out, but they're inside and no one can see them. There's a difference to how I make things for me to how I make things for my shop, is what I'm saying. But I think it also helps us to flex the muscle of done is better than perfect. Now, you know I love that saying, and I know that a lot of you don't. But I'm gonna invite you to try and embrace it, and here's why. Nowhere in that saying does it say do less than your best. Nowhere. I think some people do tend to interpret it that way, but the focus for me is in the done, because perfection is often used as an excuse. It's used to put off the finishing and the releasing of our work in whatever form that comes in. And I think there's fear behind that, because whenever we make something creative and we release it, we have to let go of control. We have no control over how our work is perceived, and that is vulnerable AF. Nobody likes the idea of working on something and then putting it out there only for it to receive negative judgment. One way to protect ourselves from that is to say, oh, well, it's not ready. I can't release said thing right now because it's not done. Hence, the done is better than perfect. And there's a few reasons why we should let things go. Because sometimes something that we work on and release, it isn't the thing. It isn't the thing that we're going to get known for. But it could be a stepping stone towards that. It could be the thing that gets us to the next level in our skill. Every new product, every new launch, every new post that we put on social media can take us a little bit closer to where we want to be. And I say post on social media because it could just be learning a skill, like making reels. I make long form video. So you might think that I would be very at home making short form video content for Instagram, for example. Nope. Don't you believe it? I feel so uncomfortable making reels. I want to, but it's a skill that I just don't have. And I know that the only way that I am going to get any good at it is by practicing, putting my reps in, and allowing myself to be really, truly terrible for a little while. Yeah, they will come. They will come. And when they do, I'm going to let them go, and I will get better with each one. But I am not going to hold on to each one too tightly or be too precious about them. Now, I've just paused this video to get you an example. If you're listening, I'm holding up one of my embroidered designs, and this is a finished hoop that I make. It was part of the great pivot from a year or so ago, which you'll know all about if you've been following me for a little while. This was done, not perfect, and it has been returned to and tweaked over time, because when you release something, you can come back to it and improve it. Sometimes you can only improve it once you've released it and gained some more skills or gained some more information or some more ideas later on down the line. You cannot just get everything right and perfect from the get-go. So this has, I've tweaked the design ever so slightly in minute ways that some people may not have even noticed. Anyway, so this is a finished hoop. Brilliant. Okay. I released it. That's a step forward. Since then, I've realised that I can come back to this same design, and I can also release it as a DIY kit or a stick and stitch patch, which I haven't launched in the shop yet. So if those excite you, don't get too excited because they're not there yet, but I will be releasing them soon. But these are stepping stones to other products and ways that I can make my shop better and my business better. But I only got there from making the finished hoop and making the design and getting it done and releasing it, not holding on to this idea of perfection. I did make it better as time went on. You can come back to things. This idea that once you release something, you will never touch it again. Maybe some people don't want to, but that doesn't mean to say that it works for everyone, and you can come back. Nothing is set in stone. Don't get stuck in the weeds with this. Sometimes I think we put obstacles in our own way, and we tell ourselves that we have to do things perfectly, otherwise we shouldn't try doing them at all, and therefore we don't try things because we're afraid to suck at them. And often what we consider to be bad, other people will consider to be perfection, and vice versa. You can only do your best with what you have at your disposal in the moment. I think what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we use perfection as a form of control to try and protect ourselves from judgment and the fear of letting stuff go, and also because we don't want to be in that messy, imperfect stage where we're not great at stuff. And if you needed more, then I do think that in this day and age, I think it is more important than ever to embrace imperfection. Because if you think of AI art, for example, I mean, that's pretty perfect. There's no imperfections well, it depends what kind of AI art you're looking at. But there's no real individual style there. And I would argue that sometimes people's style lies in the imperfections or perceived imperfections. And a lot of things on the internet all look the same. They're trying all to be perfect. Like mock-up images, for example. I know sometimes you have to use mock-up images. I'm not having a go at people who use mock-up images. Don't come at me. But I think even people who use mock-up images will appreciate what I'm about to say, and that is that sometimes they can all start to look very samey, and that's a bit of a challenge if you have to use them because you want them to stand out and you want them to look different. But they can all look a little bit too perfect, and it can all start to look very samey and predictable and boring, and people scroll past predictable and boring. For example, if we're going to talk about products on something like Etsy or even your website, if they all look the same as everything else on the internet, it's not going to capture anybody's attention. It's not going to stop their scroll. It's not interesting to them. Sometimes imperfection is interesting. Sometimes it's the imperfection that stops the scroll. Here on YouTube, a lot of people say that they're afraid to get started on YouTube because they haven't got the right kit. I got started with just my phone and a little cheapy lapel mic that I got online, and that was it. People didn't care. People don't come to YouTube for perfection or for TV quality. They go to TV for TV quality. YouTube is more gritty, it's more behind the scenes, it's more creative. And this is why I don't feel bad about rocking up in my office and just, switching the camera on and talking at you. Because this is the place for that kind of content. People are looking for, I hate to use the word authentic because it's been so overused, but authentic content, honest content, it's what people are looking for. They don't want the fakery. We are so done with fakery. The internet is awash with it. So your perceived imperfections can actually help you stand out. You have to see imperfection as something that your customers, your audience, or the people that you're trying to connect with, it gives them something to connect with. Because there is nothing less inspirational or less relatable than perfection. Whenever I have stopped scrolling and commented on something, it's always because somebody has done something or said something that is relatable, and I can guarantee it's almost always imperfect. I have never stopped the scroll and said, oh my gosh, this post on social media is so perfect. There is no mess in your house. This could be in a magazine. Not once. I have stopped scrolling and left comments and things for anybody who makes content that is just normal, relatable, approachable even. So when I say that we need to let go of this idea of perfection, I am not saying just put any old crap up. Don't worry about the quality of it at all. Just doesn't matter. Believe it or not, work has gone into this. I know it doesn't look it, but it has. I've upgraded from my phone to an actual camera now. I've upgraded my microphone because I wanted the sound to be better. I know it doesn't look like I've done anything with regards to lighting, but I always sit in front of this flipping window, even though it does mean that I risk being caught by the postman chatting to myself. That's happened more than once. Even this level of nonsense, there is thought that goes into it. But what I don't do is worry about perfection. I do not worry about having the best lighting. I do not worry about scripting every single part of my video. I just don't worry about that. Because if I did, I would never make anything, and there would be nothing to share with you at all. And I've been doing this for a few years now, and just by putting my reps in and putting out the best that I could do at the time with what I had in that moment, by doing that over and over again, I have gotten better. And if I stick with YouTube for another few years, I will continue to get better. But one of the things that has kept me in the game is not stressing about perfection, because it just doesn't bloody exist. And every single person who has subscribed to my channel or stopped and commented, I can guarantee you it's not because they saw my channel and thought, ooh, perfection. Or put it this way, if they have, that's because their version of perfect is different to mine. And that's what I mean. Perfection is subjective. It's not a tangible, fixed thing, and it's not something that we can aim towards because it doesn't really exist. So I know this podcast has been a little bit more laid back than usual in terms of topic and content, but I think after last week I needed a bit of a palate cleanser, and I think maybe you did too. And this has been something that I wanted to talk about for a little while anyway, because I see it crop up in the comments sometimes. You can see it in what people say, and that they are holding themselves back because they're not reaching their idea of perfection. And if that sounds relatable, then ask yourself respectfully if it might be fear talking, because if it is, fear shouldn't be driving your business vehicle. That's a weird mixed up analogy there, but hopefully you know what I mean. Fear should not be at the wheel. You should. And that does mean releasing products and not knowing how they're going to be perceived. And that does mean running your business as best as you can with what you have in the moment, and knowing that answers will come to you with time as you put your reps in. You will learn more, you'll get more experience, and you'll be able to do better when you've been doing it for a while. Experience is a thing. You cannot be perfect off the bat. You can do the best you can with what you've got at the start, but it's going to look very different a year in, 2 years in. Experience matters, but you only get experience by doing the thing, getting things done, letting them go, and moving forward. Remember, done is better than perfect, but the emphasis is on the word done. There, that's how you get better. That's how you connect. That's how you grow your business.